방금 뭐가 상황? Lagi na, 1.46. Dapat na ba yung tigil na dito? Nakapag-start sa start. Pinagawa ko na, subok. Nakamonetize ko na 500 pesos. Yan yung nakamonetize ko na. Aman lang pa. Nakapay mo lang, galing mo makapay mo lang.
Hello. Okay, sir. Testing, check. Testing, check.
mic check. Hello, hello. Are you okay, sir? So, John, what do you think of the audio? Are we okay now? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to remind our participants that the virtual conference will start shortly. I would like to remind you that your microphone should be muted and camera should be turned off at all times. Again, for the flow of our virtual conference, we will start first with a prayer, the opening message from the National President of PICE I-21, the virtual conference proper, the question and answer portion, and we will end with some announcements. Thank you. good afternoon, everyone. I would like to remind our participants that the virtual conference will start shortly. I would like to remind you that your microphone should be muted and camera should be turned off at all times. For the flow of our virtual conference, we will start first with a prayer, the opening message from the National President of PICE I-21, the virtual conference proper, the question and answer portion, and we will end with some announcements. So we have several participants who are with us today. We have one from Tuguegarao City in Cagayan Valley. We also have from Quezon Province and a participant from Bacoor, Cavite. Okay, good afternoon to you. We are also viewed on different social media platforms. You can see us live in Zoom and at the YouTube channel of POMI. We also have a delayed telecast at our official Facebook page, PICE I-21. As we know, it is a holiday today in the Philippines and in many parts of the world as we conform to the Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of the Sacrifice of our Muslim brothers and sisters. Okay, so I would like everyone to wait for a while as we will start our virtual conference shortly. We have participants from Partido State University and from Cebu Technological University in Argao, Cebu Province. We also have a greeting from Sir James Patrick Peralta from MMSU, Batak City in Ilocos Norte. Again, I would like everyone to wait for a while as we are waiting for our official beginning to start, or as we officially start, I mean.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Mic check.
Okay, again, I would like to remind you that your microphone should be muted and camera should be turned off at all times. For the flow of our virtual conference, we will start first with a prayer, the opening message from the National President of PICE I-21, the virtual conference proper, the question and answer portion, and we will end with some announcements. Good afternoon, everyone. We are viewed on different social media platforms. You can see us live in Zoom and at the YouTube channel of Homey. We also have a delayed telecast at our official Facebook page, PICE I-21. As you know, it is a holiday today in the Philippines and in many parts of the world as we conform to the Eid al-Adha, or the Feast of the Sacrifice of our Muslim brothers and sisters. I am Mr. Jose Abrian Di Casella. Welcome to the first international virtual conference on 21st century educators entitled An Inconvenient Truth, Rewiring Education During the New Normal and Beyond. This conference is sponsored by the Philippine Institute of 21st Century Educators Incorporated, or PICE I-21, and is in collaboration with the Pinoy Educators Advocating Social Media Education Incorporated and Industry 4.0 Comprehensive Organization of Revitalized Educators Incorporated, or I4CORE. Last February, in our national conference held in Boracay, we had it proposed that the next conference within this year will be held in Davao. But due to this pandemic, we have nothing to do now but to connive with this new normal and embrace the challenges. One of the solutions provided by our organization is to come up with series of webinar or virtual conferences and have the members of our organization to remain updated and connected with us. So before we formally start our conference, I would like to greet first our participants. We have one from Partido State University in Goa campus. We have Ma'am Lani Piteza and Ma'am Menchi Del Castillo. Good afternoon, ma'am. We also have from Division of Lapu-Lapu City in Cebu and a participant from Malabon in Metro Manila. We also have a participant from Lokban Integrated School and Paaralang Sekundarya ng Lokban, or Lokban Integrated School. We have from Cagayan National High School, Senior High School in Tuguegarao City. We have Mr. Rafael Derain. Good afternoon, sir. We have participants from Iloilo and from Dao National High School in Capiz Division. I think it is ideal for us now to formally start our webinar or our virtual conference. To formally start our conference, may I request everyone to be in silence for the prayer. Let's put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Lord, we offer everything to you in this conference. We glorify you for this event and thank you for every person that is with us today. May you guide our speaker so that he would be able to effectively impart his God-given wisdom to all of us. May he be blessed as he continues to share his expertise to everyone who needs them. Continue to protect our nation and all our brothers and sisters that we may be able to defeat this pandemic. Keep us safe, O Lord. Amen. To formally welcome us all in this virtual conference, may I request Ms. Emmy Jan Indonila Palmani, National President of the Philippine Institute of 21st Century Educators Incorporated, or PICE I-21, for opening message.
Good day, everyone. Good day, everyone. It is with mixed feelings as I imagine you all today, but I'm happy and overwhelmed that with the number of participants we have, but sad because I cannot see you all in person, just like the regular conferences we had before the birth of COVID-19. However, I am still hopeful that everything will be fine as time passes by. With your attendance, it is already a signification that we are all fighting and that we can beat COVID 19 without compromising our health and the quality of education everybody deserves. Learning is a never ending process. Anywhere we go and in any situation, we learn something that we could help us become better versions of ourselves. Today, our organizations, PICE 21, I4Core, and PeaceMe, welcome you to our very first international virtual conference for 21st century educators with the topic An Inconvenient Truth Rewiring Education During the New Normal and Beyond. Please continue your support by being active members and we will show how we can change lives of others so that the next generation will have more meaningful education and become successful in their chosen field of endeavor. Your loyalty and unending support keep our organizations alive. Thank you so much, my dear 21st century educators. Let us all keep on learning and let us all look for the good in everything. Thank you so much and have a nice day.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Palmani. Before I formally introduce to you our speaker, I would like everyone listening to the different platforms we have to raise your question and have it posted or raised after our speaker's presentation. We will be having the open forum or the question and answer portion after the speaker's presentation. For our listeners here in Zoom, you may use the chat functions to share your thoughts or questions in writing. We will be notifying you ahead if you are recognized. Thank you. Our resource speaker is a certified Apple teacher, an advocate of e-learning, literacy, teacher education, student affairs program development, and curriculum development. He is a published researcher and national trainer with interest in learner-structured instruction and has continually trained teachers and education leaders from preschool and tertiary levels. Just recently, he published two professional education textbooks on technology for teaching and learning and the teacher and the community, school culture and organizational leadership. He was born in Bacolod City on April 20, 1996. He has a Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English, and currently working on his master's degree at the De La Salle University in Manila. Moreover, he's a licensed professional teacher and a member of the League of Catechists and Religious Educators of the Philippines at the Ateneo de Manila University. Having served the academe for almost 5 years and in various capacities, namely primary, intermediate, and as a tertiary teacher. At present, he is connected with Colegio San Agustin in Bacolod as a senior high school teacher and college instructor. Aside from being a full-time teacher, he is also a professional lecturer in the licensure examination for teachers in various review centers and universities in Bacolod City, Metro Manila, Quezon Province, Iloilo Province, Dumaguete City, and Zamboanga del Norte for the subjects curriculum development, educational technology, teaching profession, social dimensions of education, and facilitating learning. He is currently the educational consultant of all the schools of the Oblates of Notre Dame Sisters all over the Philippines, Mater Carmeli Academy, and Elicol Incorporated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Paul Ray Mark and Salsag.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of us are safe. I'm very happy to see you this afternoon on this international webinar on 21st Century Educators, sponsored by the Philippine Institute for 21st Century Educators. I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon. Before I begin, allow me to share my screen so that we could, okay, there. So I am tasked to share with you some thoughts and my reflections about rewiring education in the new normal and beyond, as well as also how to keep us going, what are the things that we need to consider. Allow me to begin my sharing with the student's perspective and coming from the perspective of a school administrator. And afterwards, I will be sharing most of my thoughts on education and what are the things that we need to consider before we open our school later on. But it's good also to take a look of education in times of pandemic and beyond. Number one, first and foremost, on the student's perspective, and after that, with the administrator's perspective. So I've invited a student, grade 1 and incoming grade 2 student this afternoon to share with us her thoughts about new normal in education. What are her feelings and what are the things that she missed in a formal school or in a residential learning. Allow me to introduce the first share. She is Kaiser Amber Madamisil, an incoming grade 2 pupil of Colegio San Agustin Bacolod, to share with us her thoughts about education in the new normal. Hello, Kaiser. You can unmute yourself first, Kaiser. Please unmute yourself first, Kaiser. Maybe the can we unmute her? She's muted again, I think.
Hi everyone, I am Kaiser Amber Manamisila. I am 7 years old and I will be in grade 2 at Colegio San Agustin Bacolod. Today I will be telling you what I feel about the new normal. Actually, I don't know what is the new normal, so I asked my mom what is new normal. She said that what is happening right now is new normal because of the coronavirus. When the people want to go out, they have to put on their face mask and to put on soap and water in their hands. And also, they also have to put alcohol. But for me as a child, I really want to go. But for me as a child, I really want to go out to the mall and wherever places that I used to go before. Actually, I actually my mom said that I can't get out because the virus is dangerous. I am sad but also happy because I can do whatever I want in the house, like watching TV, I can play with my sister, and I can even wake up a little late in the morning. But for me, I really want to go out and to go to school with my friends. But my mom said that I can't get out because me and my sister have online class. I remember that time that me and my Ninang Jillian are having online class. Sometimes she glitches. So I always ask her to repeat the words so that I can understand well. I get excited when there is games and stories in 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 the in the online class. What makes me feel sad the most is that I can't meet my classmates, my teachers, and I can't even go to the places that I used to go before. Like the library, the canteen, and also my mom's office. I prayed that the virus will be over so that me and my sister can go to school and learn more things together. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaiser. We owe you a virtual clap. How are you today, Kaiser? Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Are you excited for the school? For school?
Yeah, I'm so excited. I miss my classmates and my teachers
Thank you, Kaiser. Congratulations.
Welcome.
So that's it, everyone. Coming from the perspective of a student, later on we will be talking about it one by one. And before that, let's talk about now how a school administrator view education in the new normal. I've invited a principal of a Catholic school here in Bacolod, Dominican sister, Sister Dulce Corazon Bacosa, the principal of St. Rose Academy here in Bacolod City. Hello, Sister Dulce. Good afternoon. Sister, you can mute yourself first, sister. Okay, there, sister.
Here na. Good afternoon, teachers. Good afternoon, Sir Paul. Okay, I'll be sharing with the perspective of an administrator on the new normal. St. Thomas Aquinas, our patron of Catholic schools, said, "We are not merely here to shine, but to lead." Likewise, St. John Dewey, which I would quote, "We do not learn from experience, we learn from reflecting." So in this new normal, how can we continue living out our school's vision? As one of the principals of Dominican schools in Western Visayas, I need to prepare myself first. Denying the fact that we are on pandemic will paralyze me to continue providing quality education. Rather, we have to remember that we need to go back to the basic. And what is that basic? We have to remember that home is the first school. It excites me to know that for now, we will have the parents and the other siblings of our students as our partners in education. We can always focus on new modalities of learning. And we have to remember that only have new platform but it does not replace our as administrator and teachers. Rather, it enhances our potential and challenges our grit. And with all that, I do believe that as educator with of this pandemic, I know parents are very fearful. Most of them are even paralyzed, and at the LESF or the Learners Enrollment and Survey form, most of our students from private schools migrated to public schools. And why is that? Maybe most of them think that pay for private schools is not worth it. Rather, they would rather go to public schools because they would have the learning they're expecting, that new normal, medyo lugi po sila kasi malaki ang babayaran sa private school, yet they're expecting that they will just learn the same way because public schools also are offering the same modalities with other private schools. So what is the difference between public and private? We at the private sector aims to help the government in this time of pandemic. We will offer the best we can to help this country improve the quality of education. So we are not here to compete with the public schools. Rather, we are here to continue helping the government, help education sector continue providing quality education. I think, Sir Paul, that is my perspective in this new normal, and I do hope that I was able to encourage and to continue stir up hope in all the teachers. And thank you for the invitation and for giving me some time to share my reflection. Are we okay now? I cannot hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sister. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your thoughts about education in the new normal as a school administrator. We're very happy that you've shared your time with us this afternoon. Thank you very much, sister. It's good
You're
that,
welcome, sir.
thank you, sister. It's good that we've shared already or we've got some perspectives on education in the new normal, first and foremost from the perspective of a student on incoming grade 2. And then later on, we will be talking about, and also sister shared her thoughts about education in the new normal on a perspective of a school administrator. What are the struggles of a school administrator? And also all of us do have our very own struggles, that the kid do have a struggle also of her own, and then sister do have a struggle of her own also. So it's good. Allow me to begin with a poll or a survey on what do you think will greatly change for education in the new normal. Let's talk about, because many of us here are educators, of course, are teachers. I know from both from the basic education up to the higher education. Allow me to begin with that, and then let's talk about how education, or for you, what is for you education, or what will greatly change in education in the new normal now. So let's talk about that. So allow me to start the poll. If we could have, if can we launch the poll now? We will be using the online survey of Zoom for those who are in Zoom participants. So education in the new normal. So you try to take a look or to check what will most drastically change in the educational institutions in the new normal now. May it be you are in the Department of Education, may it be you are in a higher education, state universities and colleges, local universities and colleges, or you may be into private Catholic educational institutions, sectarian and non-sectarian schools. So what will most drastically change? You may start answering now in your respective Zoom accounts. If what will most drastically change, may it be into faculty qualifications, organizational structure, curriculum and instruction, university linkages and partnerships, student life, engagement, and well-being. Okay, let's have, maybe we could have 2 minutes in answering, and then we will generate the poll, or the moment that the poll is already done or it was answered by most of us, by the majority, we can generate the results of the poll already. Okay. For the staff, if the results are already there or already, you can share already the results. Okay.
Share results now.
Okay, good afternoon, Sir Paul.
Yes. Can we share the results? You can share it also on our screen.
Okay, Sir Paul, good afternoon.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so I have here now the result of the poll on the question, what will most drastically change in educational institutions in the new normal? We have 6% for faculty qualifications. We have 13% for organizational structure. We have 87% for curriculum and instruction, and 16% for university linkages and partnerships. We also have 55% for student life, engagement, and well-being. So the highest percentage we have is on curriculum and instruction, which is 87%.
Thank you, sir, for that. Allow me
Welcome,
to
sir.
talk about it also. If you try to take a look, faculty qualification has not changed. What do you think, no? For the participants, you try to think about it. Why faculty qualification, or you've not chosen faculty qualification, but more of into student engagement and more of into the curriculum and instruction. So let's talk about it later on. Why? Or you was not able to
Yes,
think
minsan
about the
plus point
quality
3.
quality faculty qualifications change. So let's talk about the inconveniences that this pandemic has brought into us, members of the educational institutions. You may be into basic education or you may be into higher education, and how this pandemic challenged us to not only reboot, but to rewire education in the new normal. So good afternoon once again, everyone. I am Sir Paul. You can call me Sir Paul. And that would be a word of endearment already for me, Sir Paul. You can call me Sir Paul. I'm currently connected with Colegio San Agustin Bacolod as a senior high school teacher and as a college instructor. So I am also a certified actor and into educational technology, learner-centered instruction, and curriculum development. So I hope that we will be learning with each other, and I hope you will learn something from me this afternoon in this first ever international virtual conference of the Philippine Institute of 21st Century Educators. So thank you very much also for this opportunity that you have gave me to share my thoughts about education in the new normal. Of course, let's begin with this thought that the world will never be the same again. That if you try to take a look in just 3 months, that many things has changed, that it drastically changed. That for example, we've been into lockdown for almost 3 months, maybe or more for some areas. And then the moment that we went out of our respective houses, many things has changed. That's why Kaiser is right. That there are a lot of things that we are doing before that we can't do now. That for example, a kid wants to go to a mall and she can't go to a mall, go malling now because of this pandemic. And of course, there are a lot of inconveniences that this pandemic has brought us. That's why we need to think about also that how school and education before sadly will never be the same again. That if you imagine before that, or now we are July, and that maybe by tomorrow we will now be in August. If we are in a normal situation without the pandemic, maybe we are already busy in our schools now. We are busy in our schools now, but sadly we are not. And then comes August 24 or comes school opening, many things has changed. And it's very difficult for us to go back to what we were before. Our shared concerns, we have a lot of shared concerns. May it be economic, psychological, or social. Economic, may trabaho pa kaya ako? The very question of teachers, not only in the public school, but also most of the time in the private educational institutions. And sadly, hearing news, for example, of school closures, it pierces my heart. That, of course, it's not only all about the school, but most of the time, it's all about the teachers who will be losing their jobs because of this pandemic. And not only teachers, but almost all of the industries are experiencing this, that they are asking themselves, may trabaho pa kaya ako? Or even in a school context, what will happen to our school canteen personnel? What will happen to our school janitors? The students will no longer be in school. That's the question, may trabaho pa kaya ako? Or focusing ourselves on the teachers, that the teachers are asking if they will be replaced by artificial intelligence or by robot. That's one thing also. If teachers will be replaced by a robot, as well as psychological. What will happen to my future? For example, if you have plans to go abroad, and then you've resigned in your workplace, if you resigned in your employment, and then you plan to go abroad, and then you can't because of this pandemic. So there are a lot of psychological hindrances and inconveniences that this pandemic has brought us. Also social, that we are somewhat scared because baka there would be a lot, or this pandemic will brought us chaos. That this pandemic will brought us chaos. So these are our shared concerns, may it be economic, psychological, and social. But if you try to take a look, the traffic growth of decline due to COVID-19, the most affected industry is travel, as well as advertising, construction, manufacturing, real estate also, and transportation. That these are affected industries because of this COVID-19. But also energy, media are the industries that continue to survive even though we are experiencing this pandemic. Also, if you try to take a look the major industry disruptions, that the levels of employment of wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles are still there, as well as manufacturing. But the greatly affected industry are into accommodation and food services. That many hotels also shut down because of this pandemic, that they was not able to thrive because of this pandemic. Also, because of this pandemic, it brought us the highest record of unemployment rate. That many of our, for example, many of our migrant workers went home because of this pandemic. That's why Sister Jules is right. One of the challenges of a private educational institution now is enrollment, or even in public school, they are also experiencing this problem of enrollment, that many of our students did not enroll. They did not enroll simply because that there is face-to-face classes and they don't like online or remote learning classes. And also Department of Education could continue to instill to us, would continue to remind parents that this new normal is not only all about online, that this is not only all about online, that there are a lot of learning options that it's good to consider, that it's good to explore. So that's why we are experiencing this exodus also of migrant workers, of our OFW, overseas Filipino workers. They will go home. And then, of course, the moment that they go home, they don't have money, they don't have work. And then, of course, they will no longer send their kids to the private school. And that's why that's one of the challenge of private educational institutions now, that because of this pandemic, their enrollment got low. That's why there is one school that I am an educational consultant, and then the directress informed me that it pierced her heart that there is this Lola grandmother then who is crying in front of her, that this Lola wants to enroll still uh, her granddaughter to this school, but then again she can't because that the mother and the father are in abroad but don't have a job already. Because if you try to have a look accommodation industries, hotel industries, because no travel because of this pandemic. So that's why if no honey, of course, uh, no money, no honey. And then the level of sweetness of course was lost. And then of course it was replaced by bitter sour. So highest record of unemployment rate. Another thing, of course, is that the intensified inability to access basic needs. If you try to take a look, if there would be SAP, the time that the SAP will be given to our countrymen, no, they're busy queuing. But if you try to ask ourselves if all of us are recipient of it, I don't think so. That all of us is not a recipient, but some of us are not a recipient, but all of us is affected. That's one thing also that we need to think about, that this COVID-19 has brought us, as well as large-scale displacement of citizens. If you try to take a look, we have many LSIs going home here in Western Visayas, but also in some places also. But because of this, of this large-scale displacement of citizens, because of this large-scale displacement of citizens. So because of these, we have also this discontinuity in schooling, that educational institutions are also affected of this COVID-19 pandemic. That you imagine a school, a classroom that before it's full of students, full of laughters and engaged teacher and student interaction. Now comes August 24 or come the school opening, there would no longer be students in a classroom. that as a teacher, you will be facing yourselves or you will be facing your student on a screen, on a little box of a Zoom video conferencing tool, or in a video conferencing tool like Google Meet, WebEx, or in a messenger room, or some in a module that they will be hearing the thoughts and words of their teachers through the self-learning module. And that is sad because of this pandemic. But also, we need to continue that because also of these school closures, widen learning inequalities and it hurt vulnerable children and the youth disproportionately. That in a data by UNESCO, that because through its global monitoring of school closures caused by COVID-19, the affected learners are 28,451,212 in the Philippines. But also, one thing that we need to think about also as teachers, that we need to remind our parents and our stakeholders that this is not the last major outbreak we're ever going to see, that there would be pandemic later on in accordance with the pronouncements of science experts and public health experts. That's why it is a challenge for us teachers, for us educators, on how we can continue delivering education, on how can we improve infrastructure of learning, which is disruption proof, that on how we can develop a disruptive proof learning infrastructure because of this COVID-19 pandemic. But also on a lighter side, this COVID-19 pandemic has brought us a lot also of advantages, not only of disadvantages, that we continue to have a bond with our parents, with our in at home because of this pandemic. That if before we are busy, we are in a hurry, but this pandemic taught us how to slow down. How to slow down. And also, another thing that this pandemic has brought us is also to explore some learning options that we take for granted for how many years. Like, for example, the usage of learning management system, the usage of blended learning, flipped learning, and most especially the technology integration tools that we took for granted for how many years because we was not able to see the relevance. But because of this pandemic, it forced us to explore some more, some more. Also, because of this pandemic that we are not sure of what will happen later on, what will happen tomorrow, what will happen after December, what will happen by January 2021, because let us remember that we are now living in a VUCA ecosystem, an ecosystem that is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguity. Volatility, that everything is unpredictable. Like, for example, if you are a low risk area now, it is still volatile because you cannot tell that you would still be low risk area maybe by tomorrow, maybe by next week, or maybe by next month. And also, we are living in an ecosystem that is uncertainty, that it requires us to take action without certainty. That's why this blended learning, this remote learning, this home-based learning, every one of us is in a trial and error process. That because we were not trained on how to teach in distance learning, the teachers are not trained on how to teach remote in a remote learning scenario. So therefore, we continue to take action in order for education to continue. But also, we equip ourselves, we upskill ourselves as teachers, as educators, we reskill, we upskill, and we cross-skill in order for us to continue education, the education of the Filipino children, as well as we are living in a complex ecosystem, that the environment is dynamic with many interdependencies and of course ambiguity, that we are in a scenario that the environment is unfamiliar, outside of your expertise. Of course, this distance learning is outside of our expertise, but we continue to learn as teachers in order for us to deliver still quality education to our students. Also, J. Prospero de Vera, the chairman of the Commission on Higher Education, reminded us that the approach to education should be anchored on the premise that learning must continue. That quarantine or not, learning must continue, and therefore it is everybody's responsibility to ensure that flexible learning is delivered during and after this crisis. Higher education institutions are the repositories of innovation and the vanguards of change. So I would like to highlight the statement of our beloved chairman on the Commission on Higher Education that higher education institutions or even into basic education institution, it's still true even though you are into basic education, that we are repositories of innovation, that we need to innovate much more in times of pandemic and beyond. We need to innovate given the fact that we are now in a VUCA ecosystem, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous ecosystem. The very beautiful decision, the very beautiful thing that we need to think about, that we need to do is to innovate as teachers, to try to improve our learning delivery, to try to explore some more on what can we do, on what can we do now that we are not doing before, or on how can we continue what we are doing before to now in this era of pandemic in an innovative manner. But also, let's try to think about also that there is two types of innovation. May it be into isolated or grounded innovation. Isolated innovation is a type of innovation that you are there on top, that you isolate yourself, that you try to instill innovation even though that you was not able to see the context, that you was not able to think about the context. And on the other hand, grounded innovation, see first the context, and from the context, he or she innovate and improve what is already available. That's why this new normal is context specific. That this new normal is context specific in a sense that this is context specific, that it would be a new normal for you that not might be not a new normal for us or for me. That a new normal in the public school might not be a new normal in a private educational institutions, or a new normal in a private educational institutions might not be a new normal in the public school. So therefore, we need to think about on that perspective that this new normal is context specific. Allow me to continue. Let's try to think about this cartoon. Maybe we should try to think out of the box. Minsan may mga teachers tayong ganyan, no? Try to think outside of the box. O wala na, parang nagtakip na lang ng mata. O think out of the box. O. So that that there are a lot of teachers, some, not all teachers who doesn't like to innovate, sadly. But then again, my dear teachers, allow me to remind you that once a teacher, forever a student. That once a teacher, forever a student. That sometimes the moment that our educational leaders would tell us, innovate, read. Sometimes they will not. Like for example, I gave a training. And then during that training, I told them that you will be making a learning module, an online learning module. And there's this teacher, a seasoned teacher, told me, I don't like to make an online learning module because I don't know how to manipulate the computer. Of course. So therefore, I will give an alternative. And then I told her, okay, so if you are not computer literate, you're a digital migrant, I say, so maybe it's good that you will explore an offline learning module. And then immediately she told me, I don't want also to make an offline learning module. I don't like it too. How will my students learn in an offline learning module? And at the back of my mind, I told myself, what will you do now in this pandemic if you don't want to make an online learning module? You don't want also to make an offline learning module. What do you want to do now? Early retirement? Joke lang. That's one thing, no? That many of us doesn't want to explore some more. So there are some, not all, that in the corporate world, they pay you big bucks for thinking outside of the box. That they don't want to innovate because there's no pay for it. Na walang bayad, 'di ba? That we are some of us or some of our teachers are into a minimalist mindset that what is there, it's okay. It's okay already. I will no longer think about for more. I will no longer think about what can I do, what can I offer, and how will I improve it. Na chill lang tayo. Hanggang dyan lang kasi yan lang makakaya natin. Pero sabi ko na nga, walang mataas na pader ang pwede mong maakyat pag ikaw ay hinabol na ng aso. Hindi ba? At minsan, for example, kapag nasunog yung bahay, syempre, ang bilis. Yung refrigerator, buhat-buhat mo. Pag naapula na yung apoy, ipadala mo yung refrigerator, hindi na yun kaya. Minsan, we are like that we tend to be contented on what is already there and we doesn't want to innovate. But then again, in times of pandemic as teachers, all the more that we need to learn because we are entering an era that we do not know how to do it. We do not know how to do it. Sometimes, of course, eureka, I finally learned how to think outside of the box. That also, maybe it's also a process. It's also a process on how to think outside of the box. That's why some of the term before, of course, we are Homo sapiens sapiens. It's a scientific term of a human person, but also the scientific name of a human person now is no longer Homo sapiens sapiens, but Homo sapien webinarus, because we are fond of webinars also. But I hope that these webinars would not only all about the cognitive knowledge. I hope that these webinars would not only all about certificates, but these webinars would be applied in your educational institutions, would be applied in the classroom. Also, one thing that our mindset as teachers, my team is having trouble thinking outside the box. We can't agree on the size of the box, what materials the box should be constructed from, a reasonable budget for the box, or our first choice of box vendors. Minsan yan yung nangyayari sa school kapag ganito. Gawin mo to. Matagal-tagalan pa kasi in a faculty meeting, nag-aaway. Ano ang uunahin? Hindi ako ang tama. Ikaw mali ka. But then again, I would like to remind you again that there is no one is right, no one is correct, as well as no one is wrong now. That we need to think outside of the box and we need to collaborate one another. That we need to collaborate with one another now. And of course, the number one thing is that we need to have a growth mindset, that we are open for suggestions. Another, of course, get back in the box and start thinking like the rest of us. But innovative mindset is not like that. That being innovative is not only thinking all the more or the thinking the same, but innovative mindset is all about how you think differently from one another and how can you give solution to a problem in a creative manner that some was not able to give. Also, thinking outside of the box didn't work. Thinking inside of the box didn't work. Maybe it's a defective box. Minsan yan lang sinasabi. Ayaw ko na kasi sira yung box. Wala nang box. Minsan, ipapasok na kita sa box kapag ganyan. But it's very difficult, my dear teachers. They only taught me how to think outside of the box. I'm not trained for circles. Sometimes we were trained on how to do this, on how to do that, but we were not trained on certain things. Most especially on professional development also of some of our teachers. Sometimes it's very difficult as an educational leaders. We were not prepared. Sometimes we were not prepared, or sometimes we are not prepared because we are not learning. That's why as teachers, once a teacher, you are forever a student. That you need to think about also that the moment that you've stopped learning, It's also a time that you should think about if you will continue to teach. Because as teachers, we impart knowledge. How can you impart if you do not know how? How can you impart if you do not have knowledge? So one thing is that innovative mindset is all about exploring some more. That's why not only all about a box, but also all about circle. Dave can think outside of the box. Larry can think outside of the bag. Sue can think outside of the cup. Vinny can think outside of the balloon. Lucy can think outside of the duffel bag. Mitch can think outside of the mitten. We're ready for anything. That's why collaboration is very important now. That in a school, we continue to help each other. That in every teacher, he or she do have an area of specialization. And this is the time that we will collaborate with one another. Let's try to take a look of that one by one. Allow me to continue. Innovations in curriculum, pedagogy, and technology must always be grounded in context. That whatever we want to innovate, whatever we want to improve, and whatever that we want to rewire in education in the new normal must be grounded in context. That we need to think about that it might be applicable to some schools, but maybe it might not be applicable in your school. Something that you need to think about, the applicability of these innovations in terms of curriculum, pedagogy, and technology in your school. So, of course, one thing that is very good, or one thing which is an innovative move for me in the Philippine educational system, is that we move from presidential learning to home-based learning. But because of this move, it gives us intensive marketing, that it gives us a certain intensification of marketing, of competition among private educational institutions. That we are entering an era of the university of everywhere, that anywhere you are, you can continue to learn, and it doesn't consider the time, the pace, and the place. So it is all about competition of educational institutions now. One thing which is also challenging to the private educational institutions. But also, because of that, there is our way. But some would tell us that it's a challenging way, it's a right way, it's a hard way, it's an ambitious way, a difficult way, or a slow way. But there would always be our way. Our way can mean so many things. Like, for example, substitution. We've substituted conferencing app and PowerPoint presentation instead of a classroom-based learning and a chalkboard or a whiteboard. For example, on the other hand, alteration, that we revise our syllabi and curriculum maps to identify the most essential learning competencies and outcomes, that we trim down our voluminous content and outcomes before into the essential, that we teach now the essentials. Also, we are into perturbations from residential learning to distance or blended learning. Also at the aspect of restructuring, that we shift from a teacher-focused instruction to a learner-centered instruction. And also value and orientation, that we enhance school structures and learning processes with digital and mobile learning tools. So substitution, alteration, perturbations, but more of it is into restructuring and value orientation. Let's accept the fact that starting a school comes this school opening is a very difficult and a very challenging one, not only for the educational leaders, but also for us teachers in the classroom. That's why COVID-19 finally made us push the button for rewiring and not just for constantly rebooting education. Because when we talked about rebooting, it's only that you sleep and the moment that you wake up, you continue the same, that you continue to do the same. That's why in the quote that I gave there, you can start the next chapter of your life if you keep rereading the last one. That's why hindi ka maka-move on kasi nagbabackread ka pa rin ng mga messages nyo. No? So ganyan. Kahit parang COVID-19 pandemic din yan, hindi ka makakapag-move on sa ginagawa mo kasi ganyan. And also in psychological studies, in psychological studies, we are also on, many of us teachers do not innovate because they can't move on to what they are doing before. But not only some, but maybe most of us are into that. But because of this pandemic, because of that innovative move, because of that rewiring of education, we need to think it over how fast we can deliver education. That's why we are into good, cheap, and fast. But if you pick good and cheap, you won't be fast. If you pick cheap and fast, you won't be good. But if you pick fast and good, you won't be cheap. That we are entering an era that we need to be fast in our decisions, but not only that we are fast, we are quick in our decisions. We need to take a look also. We need to see that we are also giving good decisions in order for us not to be cheap. If you cannot be fast and if you cannot be good, therefore you are cheap now. So it's a challenge to educational leaders. We are in a new normal, and in this new normal, there are new roles, new rules, and new routines. That we are entering an era that it is like that we are starting a new school from scratch. That as teachers, we have new roles. As educational leaders, we have new roles. As a student, they have also new roles. But also because of these new roles, because of this new environment, because of this new normal, we have also new rules, most especially in the classroom discipline, most especially on how we manage our classroom. We have also new rules that a school need to put into writing and to let all the stakeholders know that these are the new rules of the school. As well as teachers, you need to think about also new routines. For example, if you are into synchronous classes, what are the new routines now when you come into August 24 facing the students online? So we need to take a look of these three. What are my new roles now? What are the new rules of my school now? And what are the new routines that I need to employ in our virtual classroom? Allow me to talk about it one by one. Of course, we are entering an era that we do have new infrastructures. We have new daily schedules from before. If we are into 8 hours a day, that we are entering an era that we consider the screen time limit of our students. That you only have, for example, 1 hour a day for the kinder to from nursery to kinder, and you have maximum of 2 hours for the students of 6 years old and above, as well as school rituals, and as well as transitioning our classroom-based discussion into a virtual classroom. Also, we are entering an era that we need to develop new systems. New systems in a sense that, of course, we need to think about new attendance systems. How can we check attendance now? What will happen if my student doesn't claim the module? What will happen if my student did not answer the module? What will we do? As well as new systems of discipline. How can we employ discipline now? As well as new systems of requirements, how the learning module will be given and how the learning module will be brought back to you as teachers. How can you check it and how can you return that? And most importantly, how can you give feedback now? How can you give feedback now? Also, new approaches in terms of student engagement. That is not only all about online learning. It's not only all about that you give a module, it's okay that you can teach, that you continue to receive compensation. It's not only all about that. As teachers, you need to think about also, will my students be engaged of the material that I gave? Will my students be engaged in me in front of this online learning? Those are the things that we need to think about also. That is not only that, okay, I have Zoom meeting, okay, it's okay already that I have Zoom class. Okay, that I have submitted my module, it's okay already. So it's not all about that. You need to think about also how you continue to engage the students and on how you can continue to form the students even we are into a remote teaching and learning process. As well as a new culture, class routines, and classroom management. Most especially now. That's why I am challenging you, my teachers, on trying to introduce virtual classroom management on how classroom management will look like now in a virtual classroom. So this is the time for school leadership also, that a school survival will greatly depend on its leadership. And it is a challenge for the educational leaders, instructional leaders, on how can you rethink systems and processes now in the new normal. So school leadership in the time of COVID-19 and insights from the Global Online Academy Leadership Roundtable, that as an educational leader, these are the processes and skill that you need to think about, that you need to know how to strategize step by step. You strategize what I need to do first, to do next, so that I could deliver education comes school opening, as well as stabilize to capacitate your teachers. What are the things that they need to know, and what are the things that they need to know in order for them to deliver innovative instruction, as well as to mobilize, to set up streamlined systems, focus on connections also, and ensure equitable access to resources. That's why, for example, the Microsoft gave us this digital transformation framework, education transformation framework for the higher education, that sadly, some of the schools, for example, if they bought or if they subscribed a learning management system, for them, they're safe already. And sadly, it's not only all about that. That learning management is only a part and parcel of this digital transformation that we are experiencing. That you need to think about also student success. That yes, you've subscribed a learning management system, but will the students be engaged in the materials that you posted in the LMS? That's why you need to think about that a learning management system is not only a repository of materials. Kasi baka kumuha ka ng learning management system, lagyan ko ng YouTube video, lagyan ko ng document, lagyan ko ng handouts, lagyan ko ng mga materials. You need to think about also if it is aligned in the competency. Or if ganyan lang naman ang ginagawa mo, bakit nag-LMS ka pa? Siyempre nag-Google Drive ka na lang sana kung gusto mo lang naman maglagay ng mga kung ano-ano dyan. So, a learning management system is like a room. It's like a room with no furnitures. That as a teacher, as an instructional designer, you will be the one who will populate the room with the furnitures. You will be the one who will design the room with those furnitures. Eto dito yan. Eto dapat dito yan. Kasi sa learning management system, may mga paglalagyan yan na dapat dito yan, hindi siya pwede dyan, dapat dito siya. So that is an education transformation framework that is not only about teaching and learning, it's also about student success, secure and connected campus, as well as constant academic research. So why change is needed in educational leadership? Because we are now digital educational leaders, that we gone online in order for us to continue the learning delivery. Of course, hinging from the standards of ISTE 2008 and to ISTE Ed Leader 2018, that of course, as educational leaders, we need to be visionary leaders now. Visionary leaders, that you are empowering leader, that you empower. And also you are into digital age learning culture. So therefore you are a visionary planner, that what will happen in August 24? What will happen in the school opening? So therefore, you know already what will happen. You visualize already. So the moment that you visualize, you plan out already. What will my teachers need? What will my teachers need? As well as into excellence in professional practice. That you continue to have professional learning communities and learning action cell as a connected leader. As well as you are a systemic improvement, that there is constant evaluation of the processes and systems that you undergo now as a form that you are into systems designing. And of course, digital citizenship, equity and citizenship advocate. Now, of course, QRS is our new ABC. Quality, relevance, sustainability. Quality, not only all about programs, but all about people, processes, and systems, physical plant, and resources. So that is all about now. that as an educational leaders, you need to think about quality, relevance, and sustainability. Allow me to share with you or to summarize my thoughts about educational leadership, because I know there are educational leaders listening now. And then I would like to summarize it into three. Number one is on operations and logistics. Have you thought about already how will the teacher submit the module for checking? How will it be delivered? So it's all about operations and logistics. If my teachers are trained already in terms of the making of engaging or experience-driven learning module, and how will the students be equipped with this? How can they integrate applications in the learning module that they will be making? So that's one thing also that you need to think about, as well as communications and channels. That as educational leaders, you let all the stakeholders know what will happen. Sometimes there is a low enrollment simply because that these parents was not educated or was not oriented on what will happen. Kasi mostly the parents will tell us that, Diyos ko, nung high school ako, mababa ako sa algebra. Ngayon mag-aaral ako ng algebra para ituturo sa anak ko. Ay, ayaw ko niyan. Huwag ka na mag-aral ngayon. Huwag ka na mag-enroll ngayon kapag ganyan lang ang mangyayari. Because they were not educated. They were not oriented. That they are only a mere learning partner, a guide. That the input would be still be coming from the teacher. The content would still be coming from the teacher and not them, the parents. On the other hand naman, sa school setting, may tumawag, hello, pwedeng magtanong, ano ang learning modality ng school nyo ngayon? Anong mangyayari? Modular ba? Online ba? If online, anong mangyayari? Sumagot naman, may sumagot. Hindi ko alam. Tumawag ka na lang ulit. Hindi ko alam sumagot. Sumagot yung tumatawag. Wala bang principal dyan? Wala bang teacher dyan? Wala dito sila? Basic na, walang sasagot sa'yo ngayon. Kapag ganyan, that parent that called you will no longer call you again or will no longer enroll his or her kid in your school if that is the case. That's why communications and channels is very important now. Pivoting transitioning your marketing in the social media is very important now. So it's all about communications and channels. And lastly, of course, quality still of curriculum and instruction. So quality. So that's why it's not only all about module. That okay, I'll give a module or put all the readings there or module already and give it to the students. It's not only all about that. That even though remote learning, you need still to consider quality education. And that is where there is an effective school system. Allow me to shift gears. Let's try to talk about pedagogy now as teachers. So before, if you know only all about pedagogy and andragogy, pedagogy is the teaching of the child and andragogy is the teaching of the adult. We are entering an era that we will meet new gojis, utagogy, pedagogy, and cybergogy. For utagogy, it is all about encouraging learners to become more self-directed. And that is very much more applicable in our learning modules or in our learning option now. That encourages learners to become more self-directed or independent learners. We are also pedagogy that we focus on co-learning and co-creating. That it is not only that the role of the teacher is no longer a dispenser of knowledge, but a facilitator of learning. And cybergogy, that it encourages learner engagement in an online environment. So what? So what will happen now? Given those gojis, given this new normal, what will happen now? But you are asking what will happen. But many of us are still here. We are thinking still at the level of a ladder. We are still thinking, how do I do it? So diba? That would always be the question. How do I do it? So innovation mindset, be more curious than certain. And that is also applicable not only to educational leaders, but also to teachers. That be more curious than certain. Like for example, that this webinar might not be enough, that a 5-day in-service training might not be enough, that it will be your responsibility to continue to learn and to explore, be more curious than certain. Now, sometimes the problem is this. For example, there is a problem. School are closed and children are learning from home. So if you are into hinging from the idea of mindset theory of Carol Dweck, so if you are into fixed mindset, I can't learn if I can't go to school. No schooling, no learning. Fixed mindset ka. Minsan, for example, ay, hindi ko alam ng computer. Ayoko. Hindi ako matututo niyan. Fixed mindset yan. That's why we need to teach our teachers also, or we need to remind our teachers not to be a fixed mindset teachers. If growth mindset ka naman, I can keep learning if I put in the effort and stay motivated. Dapat I will learn. Dapat every day I need to give time to explore one application a day. Word, bukas Excel, bukas PowerPoint. Next week, Zoom, bukas Google Meet. And if innovative ka naman, or innovation mindset, I have a unique opportunity to learn new skills and try something I've never done before. Baka hindi ka marunong magbukas ng computer. Diba? So that is innovation mindset. That's why we are entering an era of knowledge economy. If before you are into agricultural, industrial economy, but in this 21st century, we are entering an era of knowledge economy. Critical skills for workforce of 2020, I would like to highlight novel and adaptive thinking, that you need to think and come up with creative solutions, and as well as design mindset, that you need to represent tasks and work processes for desired outcomes. That in order for you to be thriving in this era of industrial revolution, of fourth industrial revolution, you need to think about these critical skills for the workforce of 2020. Given that we are already in the fourth industrial revolution, that is characterized by cyber physical systems, which is all about driverless cars, smart robotics that are lighter and tougher. Republic Act 10533, or the K-12 law, would always emphasize that the curriculum need to be flexible. Flexible enough to enable and allow schools to localize, indigenize, and enhance the same based on their respective educational and social contexts. Allow me to share with you the definition of flexible learning by Dr. Edison Fermin, the Vice President for Academic Affairs of the National Teachers College. That this definition would also be a definition to the forthcoming SHED memorandum on the flexible learning. That flexible learning is an approach that it would cover not only the blended learning, but also hybrid learning modality later on. That flexible learning is all about programs, courses, and intervention. That flexible learning is not only all about programs, not only all about courses, as well as the intervention that we will be giving to our students. Why flexible learning? Because by flexible learning as an approach, we consider the pace, the place, the process, and the products that the students will be giving. For example, if before you give deadlines for one day, in terms of flexible learning, you need to spread that pace into 1 week, for example. That you need to overthink, that you need to widen also. We need to widen also the deadlines. That also flexible learning is all about teaching essential experiences, content, and outcomes, and it also promotes learner control and customizability. We just need to know the best modality. Why blended and hybrid learning is thriving now, why it is very important. Simply because that if we try to insist still of residential learning, which is all about face-to-face learning, it's more of face-to-face provision and remote provisions is less. So therefore, residential learning is not disruptive proof. On the other hand, if we focus on open or distance learning, face-to-face provisions is rare to none, remote provision is more. So blended or hybrid learning, on the other hand, is more of face-to-face provision, which is limited, but you can go back easily to face-to-face provision. Remote provisions is more. That's why I keep on telling teachers to try to establish a disruptive-proof educational infrastructure, because we are into an era of VUCA ecosystem. Make learning truly flexible. So therefore, if we are into flexible learning as an approach, we need to think about what we deliver in our classroom. So you need to think about of the outcomes that is easy to monitor and measure. Content that is an inch long means that the content is simple, no longer complicated, direct to the point, but a mile deep. Content that is very important, that the students need the moment that they look for a work, the moment that they progress to the next level, an experience that tap into learners' schema and promote choice. So there are a lot of learning options that you can explore. So if you have internet connectivity, you can explore these learning options. If connectivity is an issue, you can explore also these learning options. But most of us, because we are in a third world country and that our internet connection is not stable, so we are into correspondence and project-based learning. We've offered also two options, may it be online or offline learning module, simply because of this banner of the Department of Education and also of our government, the Philippine government, of education for all, that we need to be equitable in terms of access to education to our students. But also a word of reminder. The technology is just a tool, my dear teachers. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important. The technology will never replace a teacher. Technology will never replace a teacher. But the teacher who doesn't use technology will be replaced by someone who uses it. That's why, for example, merong isang school na nag-approach sa akin na sabi niya, "Sir, nagkakaproblema ako ngayon sa teachers ko kasi naghihingi sila ng laptop. Ano kayang gagawin namin doon? Wala na akong pera. The income or the savings of the school is bleeding. And then they are asking for a laptop." Sometimes it's good also to ask that these laptops is already a tool for us teachers. That we can live already without these laptops. Like for example, if you ask a carpenter, hanap ka ng carpenter, ano mo yung bahay mo or magpapagawa ka ng cabinet. And sabihan ka ng carpenter, "Ma'am, hingi ako ng martilyo, hingi ako ng pako." Diyos ko, carpenter ka. So it's also like a teacher. That in the 21st century, technology is already a tool for you teachers. Not only all about the chalk, not only all about chalk, not only all about a blackboard, not only about a lesson plan. How do we teach now in the new normal? Online learning, offline learning is already all about learning modules. So the learning modules could be online or offline, digital via internet, offline, it's all about hard copy or printed. But what content is like in the new normal? Simplification strategies that increase comprehensibility of learning resource. That we need to make things simple, so that the learners could continue to understand even though you are not there. That your role now as teachers is a coach, a facilitator. That gone are the days that you would be still there with them to continue to scaffold them. But we are now into an era that we need to increase the comprehensibility of learning resource. So you need to focus here. on the need to know of our students. That's why the Department of Education gave us this most essential learning competencies, that there are competencies that were retained, but there are competencies that was merged, removed, or dropped or rephrased. But also we need to think about that how we articulate the most essential learning competencies. Is it meaningful, relatable, or within the context of the students in their own environment? Also, we need to think about how can we choose our outcome. The power outcome is our non-negotiable. So therefore, these are competencies that is stipulated in our most essential learning competencies. And also, in identifying our outcome, we need to think about also the school's expectations. That you imagine learners leaving the portals of your school. How can they be identified among others? How can be identified the product of this school to the other school? So learners who are responsible, resilient, and possesses good reasoning skills. So that's why we are in a paradigm shift. The content now is simple, an end but a mile deep. That the coverage now is no longer lengthy and also control. That's one thing also that you need to think about. That as teachers, you are no longer in control. If before, if you are teaching grade 1, the students can't go out if they was not able to finish copying. But now you can't do that. The content is like water. You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put a water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. So also, a word of caution, that self-paced learning is not self-taught. That you need to lead the students to experience aha moments even though they are at the comfort of their home. So the goal of remote learning is to replicate the school day, is not to replicate the school day. That baka yung pag-aaral mo is from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, naka-Zoom class sila. Hindi pwede yun. Kasi we need to consider still the attention span as well as the brain breaks of our students. So that's one thing that we need to think about also as teachers because of this. So 3 components. In the making of your module, try to think about these. What will make learners enjoy despite the distance? Will my students enjoy my module? Or maybe may not? Or what will make learners more inquisitive and engaged? Will my students be engaged and inquisitive because of this module? And what will make learners qualified in the world of work? So these are the things that you need to think about. But also one thing, too much content in remote and flexible learning yields much frustration. That it yields much frustration. So allow me to share with you some tips. I would like to start for elementary teachers that include family members in designing activities in your learning module. So engage in simulations, role plays, and interviews, as well as do shared reading exercises, share day-to-day like errands, laundry, cooking, household chores in your learning module. So include the family members. It's like, for example, yung bata nagde-declaim, and then yung nanay at yung tatay yung nag-video. So include family members. As well as lever number 2, include physical objects. In designing your learning module, invite students to access their physical space. Use items around the house such as pictures, heirlooms, clothing, kitchen utensils in learning experiences, and as props. And lastly, include open-ended questions. So consider questions that don't have specific answers, analyze, deconstruct, and redesign things they are curious about. So that is for elementary. For high school to the higher education, how to design for remote learning experiences. So activate from context, connect to content, evaluate to validate. So activate from context, so you use their prior knowledge, their experience or their current situation or their current environment. Like for example, I asked my students last time during the lockdown to make a prototype, and then I asked them, make a prototype of how post-COVID-19 will look like. So how will post-COVID-19 restaurant will look like, how post-COVID-19 dating will look like. Also, connect to content. So provide relevant examples, interesting metaphors, student experiences, and intriguing situation. That before giving them a question, try to introduce a material first and be able to relate that material, to your question. And lastly, evaluate to validate. So ask them still to practice, to apply, to document, and to feedback. Like this, for example, this is an LMS-based learning module. The question is in the LMS, but if you try to take a look, the student submitted it offline. Submitted it online, pero they did that rather offline. So that's one thing also that is good to do. Allow me to brace for more impact. Allow me to share with you how we will rewire or how we've rewired education in the new normal and beyond. If before COVID-19, we are into entire stretch of learning outcomes, many learning outcomes. But during the COVID-19 and beyond, we are now into set of essential learning outcomes. Before COVID-19, you are into learning design around almost endless content. Di matapos-tapos minsan. But now we are into learning design around limited content. So if before COVID-19, you are teacher-driven, now we are more of learner-driven. Before COVID-19, content-focused, but now we are experience-focused. Allow me to end my sharing with you with this adage. In the old normal, we are fond of this Chinese proverb, give man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. Sometimes, or some of our teachers or some of our friends are still in the interim normal. I don't know how to fish. I don't care to learn. I don't even like fish, so don't bother me. Non-motivated. But in the non-normal, if you give me a fish, you have fed me for a day. If you teach me to fish, then you have fed me until the river is contaminated or the shoreline cease for development. Oo nga, no, tinuruan niya akong mag-isda. Pero paano pag nagka-oil spill? Wala nang isda. But, if you teach me to organize, then whatever the challenge, I can join together with my peers and we will fashion our own solution. Hence, in the new normal, my dear teachers, collaboration is very important. Collaboration is very important. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Okay, again, that's Sir Paul Ray Mark and Salsag, a faculty of Colegio San Agustin, Bacolod. Okay, I would like to remind our participants that our session for this afternoon is only allocated for 2 hours. We will cater as many questions as possible depending on the availability of our time. We will select questions raised by our participants here in Zoom and also with our participants in YouTube. I would like you also to introduce yourself first, the institution where you are affiliated with, and your question. Okay, so Sir Paul, we are receiving lots of positive feedbacks coming from our participants, especially with your presentation. We have participants from Marawi City. We also have participants watching in YouTube. We have from Camarines Sur, Region 5, we have Ma'am Jemeline Borromeo. We have one realization from Ma'am Meryl Garcia. Once a teacher, forever a student, according to her. We have Ma'am Arlinda Macapanas from Lanao del Norte. And we also have from Pagadian City, we have many participants who came all the way from Mindanao, from Marawi, Agusan, Zamboanga City, and we also have from Negros and Iloilo. Okay, so we have here in Zoom, we have from Ma'am Jacqueline Nable. According to her, it's our conference is very insightful, and she's very thankful. And according to Sir Ato Ma'am Edna Oano, thank you, Sir Paul, for a very comprehensive talk. But then again, we are still waiting for your questions. Sir Paul will be answering your questions. If you would like to ask a question personally here in Zoom, you may press the raise hand button, or you may proceed directly with your answer if you would like, if you don't like to be recognized personally. we are encouraging you to raise a question on the chat box. Okay. We have Sir Fitzgerald Quintanar. A good teacher cannot be replaced by technology, but a mediocre teacher can be. So let us all embrace the new normal academic setup. We have Ma'am Maria Gia G. Villarmino from Colegio San Agustin Bacolod. I guess she's your co-teacher. Okay. We have from Pagadian City. I learned a lot according to Ma'am Chiwi Was from Cananga, Leyte. And we have Ma'am Maricel Racaza from Mandaue City in Cebu. Again, our viewers in YouTube, we are also encouraging you to raise a question. We have Ma'am Mary Jane Castillo. Salute to our speaker. Thank you very much. We have Ma'am Rosemary Luces. Very informative, sir. Can I get a copy with the AVP? We will provide an answer to your question later on, ma'am, at the end of the seminar or at the end of the conference. Okay. Do we have no question? We have more of positive and enlightening realizations than questions. We have very informative, according to Ma'am Mary Ann Suriao. Thank you, Sir Paul, from Ma'am Catherine Leslie Kalunsag. And we have also all the way from Brooks Point in Palawan. Very informative topic. God bless. So again, we are also viewed live in YouTube, and we will be having a delayed telecast in Facebook after the webinar. Okay, thank you so much. Very comprehensive discussion from Iloilo. From Pagadian City, thank you so much, Sir Paul, for that very informative topic. Okay. Thanks, brilliant speaker, Sir Paul, from Rubilillo Vido. And very informative, according to Ma'am Georgina De Felipe. So, Sir Paul, generally, you're receiving lots of positive feedback coming from our participants. Okay, thumbs up to our speaker. Very informative. We have here one question for College of Medicine. We have from Sir James Patrick Peralta. His question is, Sir Paul, what can you suggest on how to educate medical students?
As far as I know, I do not know if it has changed, that the Commission on Higher Education would also be no for face-to-face classes, as well as with the Department of Education, that no face-to-face classes until there is a vaccine. But it's challenging also. It's challenging question if how this vaccine will be made available. But one thing that as teacher, one thing that maybe they are doing is that of course, the question would always be on the laboratory-based subjects, because as medicines as well as allied health-related courses are into laboratory-based courses, that lab is very important. But then again, one of their suggestions is that they move the laboratory-based subjects and then they prioritize first the theoretical subjects compared with that of laboratory-based courses. But if not, if you have theoretical subjects that it need of laboratory-based subjects, you can use simulations online. That there are simulations online, but then again, of course, face-to-face classes is very still effective with that of laboratory-based courses. But sadly, because of this scenario, because of this public health scenario, we can't do it now. That's so only simple and a personal answer on your question. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. We have here another question from Ma'am Junita in Zoom. I just learned how to use LMS, Google Classroom. If I would ask you which of these two is more suited for pupils in elementary, so she's asking about your own opinion. What do you think, sir? LMS or Google Classroom?
You have two, right? LMS, Learning Management System, is not only an application, it's a whole system. And there are a lot of learning management systems. You have Google Classroom, you have Schoology, you have Enbodo, you have Moodle, you have Canvas, and also publishing houses you have Links, Phoenix, vSmart of Vibal. That's why you need to identify advantages and disadvantages and what are the features of a learning management system, which is very much more needed, no? Which very much more needed in your context. And also, you need to think about also that if that learning management system is developmentally appropriate, if it is developmentally appropriate, that for example, you will be using Google Classroom and then you will be teaching grade 1 or kinder. So how can you go about it? How can you make that Google Classroom developmentally appropriate to the grade 1? You need to identify and you need to be context specific if where and to whom you will use the learning management system. So that's one thing of consideration. And also one thing that you need to consider is that if that learning management system do have an application and an offline option, that even though they are into offline, they can still use the learning management system. They can use some of the features, some, but if not all. It's good that Mr. Neval mentioned that yes, Google Classroom is just a part of the G Suite for education. That for G Suite for education, Google Classroom is one tool. You have the Google Docs, you have the Google Slides, and the Excel of the Google, also the Google Jamboard, for example. So that's one thing also. So it's depending on developmentally if it is on the level of your students to whom will the learning management system or ano ang how will you use that? How will you use the learning management system? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. Our participants in Zoom are also actively participating, providing answer to the questions. We actually have okay, we have here Ma'am Lovelyn Rodriguez. According to her, we use Canvas for HED. I think Google Classroom is much better for elementary. We also have from Sir Mark Elvin Mingulio. According to him, Google Classroom is just a part of the LMS. So it's nice to know that we have participants who are also actively participating, providing answer to the questions we have. Okay, do we still have questions? I think, okay, we will have the answer, the question, I mean, from Monalyn Oloroso. Thank you, Sir Paul, for the very informative and inspiring presentation. In our case, public school students have problems with internet and technology resources like laptop and tablets, for example. In your case, sir, what other strategy can you share with us aside from printed modules?
Aside from printed modules, maybe you can use Messenger, for example. You can use the Messenger, of course, because all of us do have social media account naman, no? Where are you if you don't have a Facebook or a Messenger? So you can use Messenger if, on that case, to augment, or if you want to have real-time responses from the student. So you can use Messenger. So that's one thing that you can use also aside from printed modules. But also one thing, improving your printed modules, you try to integrate some links also to your module. But also do not bombard with links, ha? Kasi baka printed modules nga and then you bombard them with links. Maybe in one module you have 25 links. So better you gone online na lang if that is the case. So most of the time, I suggest that minimum of two, for example, YouTube videos. But also you need to consider that YouTube videos is not for 2 hours kasi baka two links lang. Each of the link is 2 hours. Ano yun? Harry Potter? Lord of the Rings? So you need to think about it also. So that's one thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. We have one more question. How can we possibly teach online with our kinder pupils?
Oh, kinder.
Okay.
That's why kinder, number one, kinder still needs to have a textbook or a writing material, not fully online. Kasi if fully online or LMS based, how will the students develop their fine motor skills? Because LMS based, the students will only click. So, for example, the moment by grade 1, then they do not know already how to use a pencil. So you need to use LMS just only as a form of portfolio of their activities at home in order for you to check their activities, but not an LMS that you will the students will answer everything there, then the students will only click it there because you develop fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and also you need to check if it is the students who is answering, if it is the kinder who is answering and not the parents. That's one thing also. Diba?
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. We have from Kaiser Amber. We have, according to her, how can teachers teach students good values while teaching the subject matter and you are away from them? Okay, that's again, obviously one of the challenges we have in dealing with the new approach in teaching is the absence of face-to-face interaction between students and teachers. What do you
Uh,
think, Sir Paul?
there are two decisions that we need to consider now as teachers. Number one, wellness of the students. Number two is learning. Too much wellness, you forget about learning. Too much wellness of the students means that access, mental health issues, you forget about learning naman. So how can you teach good values? Number one is try to introduce a culture of integrity and respect to your students. That yes, the number one challenge of us teachers now is that it's easy to cheat. Diba? It's easy to cheat.
Yes,
Most of the
yes,
time,
sir.
online module. The number one thing that you need to teach our students now is the building of culture of trust, culture of integrity, culture of respect now. That in this era of pandemic, we teach not for grades, but we teach for mastery. That's one thing that you need to have. How to do it? Online campaign of the student services, all about honesty and integrity in remote learning. That's one. Number two, having an orientation about how to build a culture of trust and integrity to our students. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. I guess we will have the question from Sir Mark Elvin Mingulio as the last question. Would it be okay, Sir Paul?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so the question is, Sir, can you give and suggest ways on how to urge digitally challenged teachers to embrace new normal? Like, can you provide any strategies as well for intermediate pupils?
Oh, this one talk. That's one
Okay.
webinar. That's one session. Ang ano, yung any strategies. But then again, no, I would like to focus my question on teachers because I can't fully answer your second follow-up question. I would like to focus on the first question. One thing that as an educational leader could do to help those digital migrant teachers is to collaborate, to team up. That, for example, this teacher is do have a hard time for online. You team up with this teacher who is very good in technology. Because I know this teacher who is good in technology can easily adapt. And then you team up that you there are groups that you arrange them into peers that this one would help this teacher in the making, for example, of online module. For me, that's the least thing that we can do now is to team them up to provide partners for them on how can they continue to thrive for their online learning modules. I'm so sorry for your second. There are a lot of for your second question. There is a lot actually of strategies, no.
Yes,
But
sir.
try to explore online. Once a teacher, forever a student.
Okay, one good realization from Sir Paul, Ray, Mark, and Salsad. Okay, we have also one one message from Sir Arturo Calago. According to Sir Arturo, Google Classroom is good, but you need to explore and familiarize in using Google Classroom. Okay, thank you, Sir Arturo. Okay, thank you, Sir Paul. You're simply the best. According to Sir Mark, Elvin Mingulio Neval, and from Margarita Tepanero, Sir Paul, thanks for sharing your experiences and expertise. Mabuhay. Sir Paul, can you provide last words to our participants as we finally end our question and answer?
This new normal would be very challenging for all of us. This is very challenging. But the moment that we know that we have someone to hold on to, we have someone to ask, that there would be someone to help us, this new normal would be enjoyable. And let us enjoy the ride, my dear teachers. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Sir Paul, Ray, Mark, Salsag. Okay, God bless, sir. That ends our question and answer portion. Before we formally end our international or virtual conference, I would like to ask first the representative of I4Core, Sir Charles Isulan, for some announcements. Sir Charles.
Good afternoon. And for some announcements. To earn a certificate of participation, you must sign up the evaluation or the attendance form that are posted in Zoom, in our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel in POMI. The certificate of participation will be sent to your respective email right after this event upon verification of your attendance. Paid participants who didn't receive their certificate of participation within a day, please email to centuryeducators1920 at gmail.com or centuryeducator21@gmail.com. To our participants who applied for membership, the amount of 180 will be added for LBC delivery in case the applicant wishes to get the original documents. Membership for at least 3 organizations is free for LBC delivery charge. We will follow the mailing address stated in your registration form, or you can email us your preferred mailing address. To those who cannot make it live and can still have the chance to get their certificate by watching the recorded video of the conference on YouTube and Facebook, just sign up the evaluation or the attendance form as a requirement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Charles. Okay, before we finally end our international virtual conference, I would like to grab this opportunity to thank my fellow members and officers of PICE I-21. We have Mr. Ricky A. Cubinco, Mr. Cyril de la Puente, Mr. Isidro Villa, Mr. Adam Donald Junio, Mr. Raymond Casio, Mr. Charles Isulan, Mr. Chito Tominez, Mr. Jose Jean Montecado, and Mrs. Emijan Indonila Palmani. We would like also to thank Mr. John Michael Sonsa, National President of Pinoy Educators Advocating Social Media Education Incorporated, and Mr. Jerry Hubacon, National President of Industry 4.0 Comprehensive Organization of Revitalized Educators Incorporated, or I4Core. To our colleagues here in Iloilo Science and Technology University and all the active members of our 3 professional organizations, thank you for your continuous support. Congratulations also to Mr. Paul, Ray, Mark, and Salsag for making this virtual conference a successful one. Again, see you on another webinar. To answer one of the problems we have in the opening of the new academic year, our organization decided to tentatively have a session on module writing for instruction, a simplified approach. Our tentative schedule is on August 21, 2020. You may open the link on our official social media page and YouTube channel for more details. Special discounts and exciting treats await our early bird and loyal participants. Again, don't forget to supply information required in the evaluation and attendance form. Stay safe, everyone. God bless and congratulations. Thank you to all our participants. See you on the next gatherings sponsored by our organization. Stay safe, everyone. God bless. And again, congratulations.